Shalom Aleichem. I am here with Dr. Chaim Kaplan, and we're here in Baltimore, a beautiful sunny day, about 93 degrees, and we are here to talk about physics and Torah, and being that we're two from Yidden who are both PhD physicists that do research for our career, and also are Baruch Hashem, try to be lomed kol yom v'layla. We got to take a break for Parnas and all that, but yeah, we're here to talk to y'all and to talk to one another and to have a lot of fun discussing things. And yeah, so Chaim, why don't you tell me about yourself?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here with you. In terms of my physics, I got an undergraduate degree in physics at Purdue University. And then I went to University of Maryland and pursued a PhD in experimental atomic, molecular, and optical physics, specifically doing working with trapped ions to do experiments that are related to quantum information, namely quantum simulation. And then after that, I'm now employed at Northrop Grumman.
Great, thank you for sharing that. And so, being that Chaim worked for Chris Monroe doing quantum information at a very impressive place, I'd love to ask him about quantum entanglement a little bit. We hear a lot of different things, and I pretend I'm a quantum entanglement guy, but like I don't really use quantum entanglement at work so much. I'm a laser theorist, y'all. So yeah, if you could tell us a little bit about quantum entanglement and what that means for us as Yidden.
Okay, okay. So the way I explain quantum entanglement, so entanglement, um, I mean there's a whole mathematical description, but to explain to you how I understand it, um, let's talk about something classical like gears. So imagine you have two gears. My hands are two gears, and they're intertwined with each other. And so the idea is that you have two separate gears that are acting as one system. Why? Because they're interacting with each other. They're meshed together so that it acts as one system. So that's not so surprising to people because you can tell mechanically how they're acting as one system. But in quantum mechanics, you could take two quantum mechanical objects that are interacting with each other, and then you can separate them, and they still act as if they are one object, as if they are one, the same system that they were before. So that is, something in quantum mechanics that you don't see in classical mechanics. And so if you had two spins that were entangled, and it's a spin 1/2 particle, so that means it can be spin up or spin down. If you don't know all the math behind what I'm saying, the point is that you have two particles, and they can be in two ways: smile or frown. Spin up or spin down. And so, can you get that pencil, please?
Yeah.
So if you have these two objects, you can entangle them such that you're always going to find one of them up. So if this one is up, then this one will necessarily be down. If this one is down, this one will necessarily be up. So it's in a superposition of down up and up down. Okay? So then you could take these and you can physically separate them. Again, when you physically separate them, you didn't yet measure what state the pencil one is or the pen one is. You didn't yet measure, so you don't know. So you can separate them, okay, and then I can measure this one, and it turned out to be spin down. So then I know necessarily that the pen one is spin up. And so, I would say, how in the world does that happen? How did they communicate with each other? How did they tell each other? How did the pen know to collapse into the up state when the pencil was collapsed into the down state? How in the world did they know? Well, I don't know if anyone can really answer that question for you. Some people would say that there must be hidden variables. There must be, some deterministic way maybe deterministic isn't the right word, some mechanistic way that they must have communicated, but we're not privy to it. I think that that experiments have been done that certainly rule out any type of signal that could have possibly communicated between them that travels at the speed of light or lower or slower. Yeah. So so what does that mean for us as Jews? We're all Aravim Zalazeh. We're all, guarantors for each other. We all have what to do with each other. The only way to get these to interact, the only way to get these to be entangled is if they have in the past interacted with each other. Or you could have these two interact with each other at one point and then travel away from each other, and then this quantum particle can transfer its entanglement to another particle, and this one can transfer its entanglement to another particle, and then those two other particles can be entangled just like the original pair. And yeah, so I would say the influence that one person has, and that means through a derech hateva way, a natural way, and also through what you might call a spiritual way.
Amazing. We should be zeicha, and the listeners should be zeicha, all of us together, to influence Klal Yisrael for good, and that the whole world should come close to the Ribono Shel Olam and the Gala is or in the world. So another question I was curious to ask you:
Sure.
evolution. I'd like to ask the controversial, exciting things for the people here today.
The juicy questions.
The juicy questions.
Okay. Well,
so what's up with that?
What about it? What about it?
Yeah, just what's our approach as a yid toward such a theory?
Okay, here. So I have several things that I have to say on the topic. The first is that I think that some believing people and some non-believing people think about believing people that there's some contradiction between evolution and believing in Hashem, God, and following the Torah and the entire Torah halachic framework. And I think that there's no inherent contradiction. The main difference is going to be, just like when I go about my day, I believe that Hashem is, hashgacha pratis, that Hashem has His hand in everything. So too, if you believe that the way the world got to be the way that it is right now is through evolution, if you're a Hashem person, then you believe that Hashem was the one who influenced it every step of the way. So that's the first point I want to make. That it's not like to be a frum Jew, to believe in Hashem, you have to renounce evolution. That's not necessary. The other thing is that just in general, just as a general principle, many people's approach, from a secular standpoint, which is a totally legitimate way to approach things, especially if you're not coming from the Torah world, is to say, I have the world that I have, and I'm not sure if there's Hashem. You can't prove yes, you can't prove no. The most academically honest thing you could say, if you're only looking exactly at evidence and just what you can find out in your science lab, is that you don't know. I personally think that there are things that hint towards Hashem, but okay, we're going to put that aside for right now. From the religious perspective, Hashem, you start with Hashem. The beginning of the book, Derech Hashem, talks about how you start with Hashem and then everything follows. So Hashem wanted to create a being such that He could bestow goodness to, and the way that He could bestow this goodness to them in the best way is for them to have free will. And in order for them to have free will, they need to be in an environment, namely the physical world, where you could see things as Yad Hashem, Hashem's influence, the hand of Hashem, or you could see things as just chance. And so I went on that little tangent just to say that from the perspective of, from the Torah perspective, regardless of whether there is or is not some scientific discovery, or whether we regard some scientific theory to be true or not, is irrelevant to the fact that Hashem exists and that Hashem interacts with us. And we should have a relationship with him. On the other side, people coming from a secular standpoint, it is a legitimate scientific question to say, how did things get like this? And to say, based on my observations of the physical world, how can I explain, all of my observations, from what we see now, from all the biological life, including observations of cosmology. How does that all fit together? That is a legitimate scientific question to ask, and it is a legitimate scientific endeavor to try to answer that question. I don't think that you're going to prove Hashem or not Hashem through that process. Yeah.
So I would ask, as some listeners would want to know, it speaks about the days of creation, and it speaks about the order of of how things came about, day one, day two. So how does one mesh that with an evolutionary timescale and process?
So one of the benefits of being a Jewish layperson, I'm not claiming to be a rabbi, is that I can say I don't know.
We're allowed to say it, yeah.
So am I holding in all those details? I'm not. At one point, I read a book that discussed it, and the person had a nice way to, make everything coincide with each other. I will say that once a week I learn with a particular chavrusa, and we started from Bereshis, from the top, and we're, 10 psukim in, 10 sentences in. And the Torah points out on its own that there's certain things that don't seem, from our perspective, as logical. And so, and so whenever you have something like that, you could have people who step in and say, so the Torah is not true. Okay, but almost every time someone says something isn't true, there are plenty of commentators who comment on it and learn something very deep because of that seeming inconsistency. So I'll say, based on my understanding of Bereshis, there's plenty of room to say that it didn't happen in 24-hour days as we know it. And so maybe I'm not giving you as much detail as you may have hoped for, but I don't think that there's any inherent problem. Like the Torah says this, science says this, can't work. I don't think that's the case.
I point out the Leshem, it's not just Gerald Schroeder. The Leshem also had Rav Schwab had such a shita that a day is not necessarily just a day, and that is, of course, Rav Yaakov Weinberg once spoke about the question of evolution, the former Rosh Yeshiva of Ner Yisrael, and he said that a person, a from Yid who investigates in a kosher way can investigate it, and what does it matter? Let him come. Because if it turned out, let science say it's this way or that way. So certainly there are many Rosh Yeshiva who are not particularly concerned with such a question. And Chaim and myself, I don't think it's something that's ever particularly bothered us. I think where it bothers people is sometimes people want to say well, to say such a thing, you have to assume that the Torah is deep. Okay, so I would say
I'm willing to assume that.
Right. So as long as we assume the Torah is deep, and I would also mention a lot of things in science, things change, frameworks change in science. Today the theory is evolution. Over time things certainly substantially change. They currently are. They found that random evolution, cannot account for the sort of um, what observations that we make. And so, really the things that from Yidden have been, certain ones have been pointing out for many years about the problems with it. So now everyone acknowledges that those are the problems. They say, well, there's certain processes which developed, and these systematic processes are helping to move the process in a faster way, and that's how we get things. So maybe, so it's sort of, I think the concept to suggest that the Torah is deep is not such a, meaning, like, it's not like people had a question on Judaism, so they said, to answer it, we have to say that the evolution comes. We have to say, the Torah is deep. There was never such a suggestion that the Torah is deep, and now we have to go, show that. Now we have to pretend that the Torah is deep when like pashtus. I mean, like the whole concept of mishle. It's all you read about the beginning. The Gra speaks about all the chomer, all the Hashem uses all this chomer to teach us things, and we use it to the whole concept, like almost all I'm using the whole physical world as a mashal for ruchnias, and to teach us about spiritual concepts. Istakel b'reisu v'ora alma. It's sort of like it's in here in itself. Adam who eats hasadeh, that man is compared to a tree in the Chumash. And as Chaim said at the beginning of Bereshis, there's all these hidden secrets which the Pashut reading clearly, is going to be mashma to people that there's things that are deeper. And so I think it's one of those things where, like, if we're gonna want to look at the Torah and say, there's no depth, it's just a certain thing, and it can't be that there's any depth, it's just a written document, and like, okay, if that's your assumption coming in, but if a person is proud to be a Yid, I'm saying, like, you look at the world around us and our history as Yid and the incredible structure of Judaism and the Torah Shabbat Peh. And so when you look at all that, to postulate that there's depth is not such a difficult thing to do. And I would mention that the whole world itself, really, all science in the last several centuries has taught us that we should assume there's depth. It could be 3,000 years people are walking around and they think that a table is just a table, and a couch is just a couch, and objects, you look down and it's just the same material, same substance. And we've discovered beneath our eyes, deeper than we could have seen, beneath the superficial surface, there's a whole world of quantum realities underneath us. And so the whole universe as a whole, there's always something below the surface. Meaning, as if we're coming from an empirical perspective, there's always depth. There's always something deeper. So now we want to look at Yiddishkeit and say it can't be there's any depth to. Okay, it's hard to learn Gemara. No, it's challenging. It's deeper than physics.
I've never heard anyone claim that, like, you need to assume depth. But then again, I'm not in the world that you are of really pursuing these conversations. I'm happy to have them, and I'm honored to be here and talk about it. I enjoy talking about it, but usually I'm learning Torah at work.
This is the way a person should be.
Doing family stuff. Here, but I'll say when you were mentioning that, it just made me think. So Hashem gave the Torah. It's from Hashem. Okay. But we have books, secular books written by people that are deep. So even if you said that the Torah was written by a person, there's no reason why it can't be deep. all the more so if it's written by Hashem.
Yeah.
If you read the Torah, as you mentioned, just straight, you're going to find little contradictions, which means that whoever the author was, Hashem or Lahavdil, someone else, it means that they think that the reader is really dumb. Because like Rashi says, it yells out Darsheni, it yells out, look into me and try to figure out where the truth is. Because if you just read it word for word, translate it, it's not going to make so much sense.
Beautiful. And any parting words as we wrap up our first conversation, with these holy Yidden out here? What can we say?
Well, here. Well, actually, I'm going to go back to the conversation about Bereshis and evolution and that kind of thing. And here's one idea that I've had, and I don't know if I've discussed it with so many people, which is that Hashem is outside of space and time. Okay, We and Hashem made this physical world, which has space and time and energy and interactions, physics. Okay, and um, at some point I just thought Hashem is outside of this whole framework. So Hashem knows the future, and Hashem and created a future, and so Hashem also knows the past and created the past. And so just like Hashem created a future that is real, he also a natural future that's real, he also created a natural history that is real, not Israel. Okay, that is a true thing. So the thought that I had, I mean, this was several years ago. What was that? Was that if Hashem, I mean, given that he's outside of space and time, maybe I'm abusing some terms by saying this, but if Hashem, created the world at a certain instant in the timeline, then he made the future, which is real, and he made the past, which is just as real as the future. So, and that would be going back to Derech Hashem. That would be part of Hashem's endeavor to make it such that we always have the choice to choose, to have free will, not between chocolate and vanilla. That's not the kind of free will that we're talking about. We're talking about the choice to choose what Hashem wants versus what Hashem doesn't want. And so now I'll get into the parting words, which is that it would be unreasonable for Hashem to make people and say, I want them to act a certain way. So, to choose to act a certain way without telling us what it was. Well, what is the right way? So by Adam and Eve, there's a certain mitzvah, a certain commandment that they had, and so that's why we're put here. We're put here. Hashem gives us challenges. Hashem gives us really good things, really bad things, really average things. And our job is to do what we can. Use our bechira, use our knowledge of Hashem and the Torah, and try and say, look, I'm in this situation, regardless, it was my fault, someone else's fault, whatever it is, what am I able to do so that I can be a Hashem person, I can follow Hashem. And so that's what we're supposed to do, and that's part of us having a relationship with Hashem. And that's the point of Judaism. And it's not about if you wear white shirts and black pants and that kind of thing. Although maybe at another point we can talk about why some people do, in fact, do that. But it's about someone's relationship with Hashem, which includes our thoughts and our actions.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for driving me over here with my dead car today. And
anytime.
Appreciate it. And for all of you, thank you for tuning in. Looking forward to more discussions, and please connect with Chaim or myself, and we hope to continue soon. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
Have a good Shabbos.